Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, and welcome to Conscious Talk Radio, and I'm your host, Linda Summers, and we've got a fantastic show for you today. Our topic is the wake-up call with Vera Ingeborg. And before we bring her on to the show, I would love to give you some information, background information about her. Vera is a spiritual energy coach and inspirational writer, sharing her experiences and insights in her blogs on the Wake Up Call EU, and the Wake Up Call Experience.eu. Those are her websites, and that all information will also be on the video as well. Vera has dedicated her heart fully into supporting people to go through their own awakening process, assisting with her own experiences and helpful tools how to manage this challenging, sometimes dark, yet very exciting process. She helps to unlock people's full potential and getting rid of fears that stand in the way. She teaches people how energy works and how to use it in daily situations to make sure the law of attraction works the way it's supposed to. Vera travels a lot to keep her spirit free and open and loves to do that alone. This has helped her in her own awakening process to find self-love. And with that, I'd love to welcome Vera to the show. Hi, Vera.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. I am doing great.
That's good to hear. Me too. Thank you. Yeah, very good. Very excited to be on the show tonight.
Well, we're grateful to have you. And for anybody listening, Vera is in Germany, so I love it when we get people in other countries, and it's just so rewarding, So thank you so much for tuning, for really being here and wanting to share your message and what you're doing. And this is such a perfect topic, which, that's really how we met. I saw this and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so right up what I'm doing, and just really what I want to do in helping the world and really waking up people. So where I kind of want to go first is the wake-up call. How did you even come about with that? If you can give us a brief introduction to that.
Yeah, sure. Well, the wake-up call actually is just based on my own experiences, really, because I received my own wake-up call. Before I did all that, what you said in the introduction, I just had a very normal life and a very normal job as a manager in a automotive company. I was managing a PR department, and I had 15 people working with me. And basically I went, to work like most of us do, having too much to do, working too much, worrying too much, putting too much effort into it. And, living for work, actually, and not doing anything else. And until one point in my life, my body really told me, okay, enough is enough. So I basically suffered kind of a burnout, and with it I had a disc slip in my back, and that tied me to my bed for 4 weeks. I couldn't move, I couldn't get up. And this is when I just realized, okay, something is wrong here, and this is not how life is supposed to be, that I'm spending 16 hours a day working and not having any free time, actually, and often having to go in on the weekends as well. And this is when I started thinking about it, really, what life is all about. And that disc slip in the end was my personal wake-up call, my body telling me, hey, you need to change something if you still want to enjoy life for another 50 years. And, this is how it started. And then the doctors told me, actually, I would need surgery to be able to move again normally, and I was just like, I'm not gonna let you cut up my back or cut my back open, and I just look into different treatments or alternative stuff first, and that's what I did, and I found this wonderful healer who helped me really working with my back, and actually he started the session with a talk therapy, and I was like, well, I'm here for my back. What are you? Right. What are you trying to do with the talk stuff? And he was like, well, you will see, but everything that is in our body is something that comes like from your psyche. And we just have to go and find what it is that sits in your back. And I was kind of like, okay, let's see how that goes. But I was so willing to try anything to not have that surgery. So I just gave it a try. And believe it or not, he worked with me, and after, it took a while. It took like almost a year. But he worked through a lot of stuff with me, a lot of emotions that came up, a lot of things that were stuck in my body, not only in my back. And it was amazing how much, energy I gained and how many things I could drop emotionally and how much more healthy I felt after that. And I never had a back surgery. And, I'm going kite surfing now. I'm going running 15 kilometers without any problems. And I just recently climbed Kilimanjaro. And I think the doctors would have never, ever expected this to happen. So it is possible to heal yourself. And I learned so much on that journey, and that is just something I want to share. Because then, of course, I was so interested in it, and I just started to work with it myself and got really into it and decided this is really what I want to do for a living.
Well, and it's beautiful because what you're saying is that, it's this wake-up call for you, and I feel what a message is that you're trying to share as well is to everybody that's listening that, we don't have to wait for a wake-up call, like a 2x4 to hit us over the head. If we can really start to tune in, and our body is a great messenger for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And, it doesn't have to be like in my case that you wait until it's really close to getting very serious, like people suffering a heart attack or, like what we hear so often in business, that they have some kind of stroke or like a complete burnout. It doesn't have to go that far, because I think if you train your mindfulness before and you just listen to what your body says or start listening to it, you will even understand a headache in a completely different way. And not like killing it with painkillers, but really understanding, okay, what is this all about? And I'm going to feel into it, and I'm going to see what is my body trying to tell me with this, and working with the energy that we can sense. So this is really something I feel we have to learn again. Actually, we all have this ability. We just forgot about it.
Right. Well, and you mentioned something in your telling of your story about how you were working 16 hours a day and it wasn't a job that was fulfilling for you. So, you had also mentioned about, well, you didn't really quite mention it, but so people are probably going to say, what happens with the ego? Like, to meet our ego and understand how it ticks, what would you say to that? Because a lot of people listening maybe, well, I've got bills to pay, I've got this, I have to do this, and people are stuck. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a very good thing you're mentioning there. Is exactly the ego actually holding us back from taking that step and saying, I am really doing what I truly want. And exactly like you say, I have bills to pay, I have kids to feed, I can't change my life and turn it around just like that, which is simply not true once you understand how your ego works and how you understand how energy works. And with the ego, it's always the first step to understand or recognize in the first step we have an ego. So we have actually two forms of being. We have I call it fake self or ego self. It's the one that we were trained to be and programmed to be from a very early age. And we have our true self, which is our intuition and which is coming from deep down inside from our heart, which is actually or should be in the lead. But what happened is that society trained us something else, so we forgot about our natural intuition and we became very logical and rational people, and the ego actually is trained at a very early stage in our life. After the year of 3, if you watch children playing, like even 3, 4, 5 years old, they're still completely in the moment. They don't have all these fears that they experience, like, I have to worry about what to do tomorrow, and I have this to do, I have that to do. As a child, that simply doesn't exist because we're still in the moment and we're still completely using our intuition and our creativity and our imagination to go through life. And as an adult, the more we grow up and the more we go into school and we hear things in church and we see stuff on the news, we watch certain movies, we see marketing advertisement and so on, and all that does is permanently feeding the ego actually with fears. So the ego is our main source of fear, so to say. So this is the part we have to recognize, that the ego is actually just a fake self we were programmed with at a very early stage, and it's permanently fed through all these things I just mentioned. And once we understand that, then we can disidentify with it. And we can just see, okay, this is actually not our true self acting here. This is just something we learned, and it's a pattern we were programmed with. And once we understand that, we can very easily change the software. And we can just say, okay, we reprogram our mind. We don't have to live in that pattern. We have a lot of different possibilities. We just have to let go of the fear. And that is something I help people with, to understand that and then actually work with it.
Mm-hmm. Would you also say that the ego, I have found in my own experience, that the ego is what keeps us safe? When we try to venture out into something of the unknown, that is, the ego doesn't know, it's like that's where it kind of goes, no, because what if you fail and things like that? So it just tries to keep you in that comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it's trained to do, and actually that is what its original task was. I mean, the ego is it's a young part of the human being, but still it's an important part, because it's where the fight and flight responses were taking place, or are still taking place. And these, of course, stem from times when we still had really had to fear for our life. Like, for example, there were two tribes, and one guy from the other tribe stands in front of you with a spear and wants to kill you. Then, of course, you can either fight or you can flee. So this is actually where it stems from, or a lion is about to eat you. That's when the ego was supposed to be active and really protecting us from a real life danger. The problem is with our new world and society, we don't have these situations anymore in daily life, because everything is really safe, actually. So we could just say the ego became a little bit bored and found other things it can protect us from in daily life. And these are actually situations, when we think about it, actually it's ridiculous to be scared, because, I always tell people, what's the worst thing that could happen if this and this is not happening the way you think it should? And when people start thinking about it, most of the time they have to laugh, because they say, yeah, you're right, I don't even know why I'm so worried about it. Because it's very seldomly really a situation where you would have a life danger, or you would really have to be feared to, or have to fear that you seriously have a problem afterwards. So this is something, actually the ego was something really useful, but it kind of got overused, and due to the fact that it's permanently fed by the news, and we have all these bad news all the time, and of course fear is coming up every time when we see, for example, here in Europe right now, it's really big with the refugee situation, and we had the terror attacks in Paris, and people get scared because they see all that. But on the other hand, what the news don't show is all the positive stories, how people help the refugees here, how many people are giving and donating stuff, how many people are hosting refugees in their homes. That is not shown. So we are always, triggered with the fear button, and we never really are triggered with the love button, which is actually a much stronger energy. So, and this is, again, this is how we're trained, and this is why we're constantly living in this fear patterns instead of just saying, well, actually, I have a choice, and I'll just step into the love pattern.
Right, but people go into fear. And you also mentioned, speaking of the child, I know from my own experience too, there's this inner child work that you and I have spoke about. So, and you mentioned the inner child work as the shortcut to dissolving fears and find self-love. What do you mean by that? Yeah.
Well, I love to work with the inner child because the inner child is actually, like I said, we're programmed at a very early age, and all of our deep-rooted fears stem from childhood. So no matter if it's a fear of, like in a relationship of not being worthy, or in a job of not being good enough, or not being successful enough, this is all what we learn at a very early stage. Already in kindergarten, there's a lot of competition going on. I mean, people send their kids now to kindergartens where they can learn 3 different languages just to be able to compete in this world and get a good job later. So everything is also there is fed into you have to be better, you have to, you have to succeed, you have to constantly perform, and we're getting like all these things trained, like women have to be caring, they have to be, looking beautiful, they have to take care of themselves, they have to shave, they have to whatever, just to, get the man of their dreams. They have to kind of give themselves up to beauty. And the same counts for men. They are not allowed to cry. They need to be the protector. They need to be the feeder of the family, and so on. So we have all these ideas and certain things in mind. And when it doesn't work out now in daily life, this inner child comes back and is crying because of fear. It's crying for help. It's just always the buttons that are pushed in our life today is actually the hurt little inner child, or the hurt little inner us, saying, I still have that fear, and please protect me, please help me, please be there for me. And so instead of working, going to a relationship coach with your husband, I feel it's just a much, much more effective and much better way to go to the root in childhood and work with the inner child, instead of working through the patterns that came up due to the early programming in the recent past. You just go to the beginning and you have it cleared all at once. You don't have to go through every single situation with your boss because he doesn't treat you right or ignores you or gives you a hard time or gives you too much work, or a colleague that is talking behind your back, and whatever, your partner that is not being faithful, and so on. So instead of going into all these single situations that we experience and face, we can go to the origin and work there. And also in relation to the ego, with what we discussed before, the ego actually pulls the energy from the inner child, because that's where the fears come from. So every time the ego comes into the front, actually it's taking our inner child and making that fear happening again.
Well, and something that you mentioned too, which I love everything you're saying, is it's just, like I said, I know from my own experience of doing inner child work that even as an adult, when you're having a disagreement or something's happening, if you can really step back in that moment and see what age is this really happening? Is this when I was, as a 16-year-old, having this dialogue going back and forth? And if we really think about being an age of 30, whatever, 6 or 38, that's like, as a 38-year-old, I wouldn't be really doing this. So it's kind of like being the observer. But I love what you're saying, is getting to the origin, because we could go to these relationship experts and all of that, go to counseling and, share all this stuff. But if you don't get to the root cause where it began as a child, then it's just kind of superficially.
You will always go into the same pattern again. I mean, I can give an example from my own life that makes it maybe a little more vivid. I was always ending up in situations during my whole life being the person in between all chairs and trying to find a compromise for everyone. And I always had that in school. I was, in the class, I was always the one ending up in the middle trying to solve all conflicts. It was in my jobs, no matter what career. I mean, I had a hotel career first, and there I ended up being the one always trying to get everyone together at one table solving the conflict. And I had that also in my job as a spokesperson in the company, being responsible for PR and internal communication. And in the end, I ended up like all the target groups we had and the management board, and I was just always in between all of them, trying to solve all of their problems and trying to find a joint solution so that everyone is happy. Where did that come from? I was just like, I always have this pattern. Why is this happening to me all the time? And once I understood, when I was 8 years old and my parents separated for the first time, they always used me as their garbage bin. They didn't do that intentionally, but they didn't talk to each other, but they talked to me, and they said, well, he did this and he did that, and I don't understand this and I don't understand that. And the same happened. My dad just told me, well, your mom does this, your mom does that. And they never talked to each other. They only talked to me and used me as their conflict solver. And I was kind of in the middle and trying to make both of them happy. And this is where it came from. And I just understood, okay, when I'm working with this, then I won't end up in that same pattern anymore in my life now. Always trying to please everyone and making everyone happy and trying to solve the conflicts. And once I did that, what happened is I quit my old job in the PR department, and for the first time I did something. I still work as a journalist, and now for the first time I'm in a situation I'm only writing my text. I don't have any responsibility for anyone else. I don't have a team that I have to take care of now. I don't have any conflicts with bosses or within the team I have to solve. I'm just there and doing my job, and everybody leaves me alone because I don't have this pattern anymore. So I don't attract it anymore, because that is how energy works. The law of attraction works, that if I have a certain frequency and energies attract alike energies, then this is what I get. And for the first time I didn't get that pattern anymore because I worked with my inner child, I dissolved it, and my life changed.
Do you think, because somebody listening might say, well, okay, I can do that, but how long is this going to be? A long, drawn-out thing? People go to therapy. I know people have been doing therapy for over 25 years, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's just crazy, And so would you say, well, I'm sure it depends upon each person's situation, but the question is can you not really put a timeline on it or a time on it, but is it something that can be wrapped up quite quickly in a sense of, 2 or 3 sessions? Maybe it's 6 months, or it maybe depends upon the person if they're really willing to give this up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a true thing you say. I mean, it can be done with even 1 or 2 sessions. It all depends on the willingness of people to really disidentify with the comfort zone and with the ego, and accepting there is another reality if we just accept that truth, and that we are really willing to let go of things we are used to. This is overcoming this fear is the most important step, to say, okay, I'm willing to try it. And it's not about changing your life, I'm willing to leave my job now, and I'm going to divorce from my wife because it's not working or whatever. It's not about that. It's just the willingness to say, okay, there is different options for me that I cannot see yet because I'm still in this comfort zone and I'm still in my thought patterns. But alone this willingness and the willingness to work with the ego, to disidentify with it, and to really be prepared to face those fears from the past. That is what a lot of people struggle with, is to say, I don't want to go back there because it hurts so much.
Right.
But that is something you will have to go through once, and I'm not, putting bubbles around it or anything, because it's not nice to go back to that place and to feel it again. But you do that once, and then you dissolve it, and then it's gone, instead of going through the same pain again and again. So actually, if I ask even a rational mind, what would you decide for? Doing it once and then having it, being rid of it forever and not having to suffer the same thing again and again, or deciding, well, I'm too scared to go back to the past, so I'll just stick with it and hope it will dissolve. It will not, because energy works that way. You will have the same patterns again and again.
It will surface at some point. Somewhere down the line, it seems to always reveal itself. Well, then that kind of goes into this. It feels like now we could really talking about the law of attraction. I know it doesn't sound like it's compatible, but it feels like it really would be, in the sense of, because we're talking about energy and frequencies, right?
Yeah.
In our daily life, so that this is all energy. So how does that play in with this law of attraction?
Yeah, well, like I already mentioned, those patterns that we carry within, they have a certain frequency, And if there's still ego and fear patterns, they have a very low frequency. So we have different frequencies for everything in the universe, no matter if it's manifest in form or if it's just, a gas, or if it's just a thought or an emotion. They all have energies. So because everything is just energy in the end. And our emotions are just from a range, like if we take fear as the lowest frequency, and then there's unconditional love as the highest frequency in the universe. Yeah. And as long as we're still in the low fear patterns, that is what we always attract. So we always run into the same situations, we run into the same conflicts. I mean, a lot of people will know what I talk about when they went through different relationships and they swore themselves, I'm never going to go into something like this again. And exactly the same things happens again. And you always attract the same things, and they're always pushing your same fear buttons, because that is just how energy works between people. You attract people with the same frequency, and you're just mirroring back what's not healed inside. So when you understand that, then all you have to work on, and again, that's why the inner child work is so helpful, I think, because when you work with your inner child and you convince your inner child that it's really loved and that it's safe and secure, it will develop a lot of unconditional love, and you will develop a lot of unconditional love for yourself again, and really going into self-love. And dissolving those fear patterns step by step, you're raising your frequency up to the high frequency of unconditional love. And all of a sudden you meet other people and you attract other people, other situations into your life. And it's changing. So the secret really about the law of attraction, and that is unfortunately what I already said the secret, and there's this film or movie, The Secret, that many know. Yeah. And people are getting frustrated with it because they say, well, it's not working for me. I can do vision boards as much as I want and positive affirmations, but it's just not working. The reason is, and what that movie doesn't talk about, is you have to do your inner work first. Because if you're still in these fear patterns and you still carry them, then a positive affirmation alone will not do the job for you, and a visualization board will also not do the job for you. You will have to dissolve those low frequencies for good, that you can go into a higher frequency, and all of a sudden you attract a lot of positive things, and you experience a lot of miracles and synchronicities where you just think, wow, how can this be? I could have never thought of a solution like that. It's amazing. So all of a sudden, once you're done with your fear patterns and you raise your frequency, your life really changes, and that is what The Secret actually talks about. And that is something I don't like about the movie, is they don't tell you that you have to do your work first.
Exactly.
And once you understood that, then I can promise you your life will completely change to the better, and you will get and attract situations you would not even dream of before.
So,
this is how
Oh, go ahead.
No, it's just that's how the law of attraction works. And once you understand how energy works and that it's all about frequencies, then you can also accept that other people are behaving in a certain way towards you, and instead of blaming them, actually you can thank them and saying, oh wow, now you're showing me where I still have work to do. So you can completely turn around your attitude towards that as well. And that will help you again with gratitude, raising your frequency and dissolving things.
Absolutely. Well, what's one thing that you can share with the audience and the listeners that has helped you on your journey with this wake-up call?
Can you say that again? Sorry, the connection is a bit bad right now.
One thing that you can share with our listeners that has helped you on this journey that you call the wake-up call?
Well, there have been many things. Of course, I was also fortunate to meet the right coaches at the right time. What really helped me was the understanding of how energy really works. And what I did in a first step was I learned Reiki, and that was basically my step into the energetic world, because I had a Reiki treatment and I was quite fascinated by the fact that you could actually feel energy moving in your body. For the first time I knew, okay, there's something more than just the physical body. But once I started to work myself with the energy, with Reiki, and giving Reiki to other people and experiencing how this energy really works through your body and heals other people, and you can really feel what is happening to them, that for me was an experience where I said, okay, there is so much more in life than what we can grasp with our mind and with our head. There's a complete different level of a language of energy that we cannot speak, we can only feel. And I really understood, okay, sometimes I really just have to take my head out of the equation and really just follow my feelings. And that is when I started, okay, completely following my intuition again and having the ego in the back seat and asking the ego for advice if necessary. But other than that, it's quiet. Yeah. And that is just now the quality of comparing when I was still completely in my ego world and actually just jumping back and forth, future, past, worrying about what I should have done differently, worrying about what scenarios could happen in the future now. Mm-hmm. Now that I don't have that anymore, I just realize what a different quality it is to really be in the now and not permanently jumping with your thoughts back and forth, past and future. So understanding this difference between ego and heart level and understanding how energy works were the two key features in my wake-up call to really change my life for the better.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for being on the call today. I mean, it was such a pleasure. And, with anybody listening, it really is, it's time to wake up and really step into ourselves. But we do need to go inside. And so, you're the best person to go do that with. So thank you again so much for being on the show. I really greatly appreciate having you here.
Well, thank you so much for having me and for giving me the opportunity to share my story and my thoughts about it. Really, really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. We also want to thank all the listeners out there who joined us today and the ones who will be joining us via YouTube. We thank you so much. Please don't forget to follow, subscribe, comment, and like us. And you can join me next week, February 18th, for the next show, The Path to True Love with Maya Kana. So, again, Vera, thank you so much for bringing your message and your story and just, being this beautiful soul out in the world, doing what you love and really making a difference in helping other people. So we really greatly appreciate you and what you're doing.
Well, thank you very much. Same to you, Linda. Very important work you do, and I'm so glad you give people the opportunity to spread messages like that. And, thanking everyone for listening and lots of love to all of you.
Yes, and we'll have all of Vera's information on the video as well. And as I mentioned, you can, her email address, it's also her blog too, is www.thewakeupcall.eu, thewakeupexperience.eu. And again, we'll have all that on there. So we'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, bye.